and welcome to the third and final live televised debate in the 1993 Republican gubernatorial primary season. I'm Michael Aron. We're in the Robert Minor Reception Center at the Garden State Arts Center in Holmdel. This debate is co-sponsored by the New Jersey Association of Women Business Owners and NJN, the New Jersey channel. You probably know the candidates by now, but let me introduce them anyway, from left to right. Cary Edwards, former State Attorney General and Chief Counsel to Governor Tom Kean of Oakland in Bergen County. Christine Whitman, former President of the Board of Public Utilities and the Republican U.S. Senate candidate in 1990 of Tewksbury in Hunterdon County. And Jim Wallwork, former State Senator for 16 years and, as you'll probably hear tonight, a former business owner himself of Far Hills in Somerset County. Now, tonight's debate is really a town meeting. The questions will come from members of the audience. They submitted questions in advance. The debate sponsors selected the ones that will be asked tonight. Questions can be to one candidate or all three, but each candidate will get a chance to respond, and we'll get to those questions after opening statements by a drawing of lots. The first 90-second opening statement goes to Jim Wallwork.
Thank you, Michael. And fellow New Jerseyans, I'm running for governor because I want to get government off people's backs and out of their pocketbooks. I'm a conservative, and I'm proud to be called a conservative. I want less taxes, less spending, and less government. And I have run a business successfully for over 25 years. I've met a payroll, I've paid my taxes, I've provided health care benefits, and I've run a business through good times and lean. And I know right now every business person and every working family has had to tighten their belts. And that's exactly what I propose to do as governor, for the state government to tighten its belt. Now, I'm the only candidate that's pledged to repeal every dime of the Florio $2.2 billion tax increase. The Republicans have already rolled back $600 million of that, and I think that's a great job. But we've got a long way now to go. And that's a 4% rollback in each year of my first 4 years of administration. 4% cut of a $15.7 billion budget. It can be done. I know it can be done as a businessman. Beyond that, I served 16 years in the legislature, so I know the nuts and bolts of state government. I want term limits for all elected officials, 12 and out, so let the politicians go back and live under the very laws that they've enacted in the private sector. I want initiative and referendum because I want people to take back their government. I think that's very vital. Folks throughout New Jersey feel that government no longer works for them and they're turned off by government. I'm going to change that as governor. And I also want a free market system for automobile insurance. So when you vote for me, you're going to vote for real fundamental change. And I want to be your governor.
Thank you, Senator. The next opening statement goes to Cary Edwards.
Michael, thank you very much. Thank NJN for sponsoring and televising this, and the New Jersey Association of Women Business Owners. Thank you very much for having us here and giving us the opportunity to communicate with the voters of New Jersey about who we are and what we stand for. I was born and raised in the state of New Jersey, lived here 48 and a half years. Grew up in East Patterson, New Jersey, my mother and my younger brother and sister. My mother was a career woman, single parent, head of a household. Elmwood Garden Apartments in East Patterson. Worked my way through high school, 2 jobs, trying to help my mother and my brother and sister survive. I understand what life in New Jersey is really all about. When I was about 19 years old, I guess, we wanted to get out of those apartments and move into a house. My mother went out to buy a house in Fairlawn, New Jersey, next door. She applied for a mortgage as a single-parent woman, 1963, and the FHA turned her down. They would only grant that mortgage if it were signed by a man. Her 19-year-old son was that man. Whether I had a job or not was not significant. I understand what discrimination is all about. I understand what life is all about. I've been fortunate growing up in New Jersey. I was able to get a job while we were in high school. I was able to get a job as executive trainee with the Bamberger division of the Macy Corporation, to get a scholarship to college and law school. Moved on, had a family of my own. I moved into Oakland, New Jersey, became a councilman, opened my law firm there.
Mr. Edwards, we're running out of time here.
Thank you. Opened my law firm there. I went on to be counsel to the governor and attorney general. I'm prepared, as no one else is, I think, to run the state of New Jersey, to be your governor, and I want your vote. Thank you very much.
All right, the next and final opening statement goes to Christine Whitman.
Thank you. getting a little echo here. I want to thank Najabo and I want to thank NJN for sponsoring this debate, another opportunity for the voters of the state of New Jersey to see the choices that they have in this most important election year. This is a time when we really can make a change in the way New Jersey's been going. It is very much about what Jim Florio and his policies have done to this state in the loss of jobs and the number of homes that have had to, households that have had to declare bankruptcy. It is very much about the pain and suffering that the people of this state face every day. That the tenor of the discussion has gone from just one of concern about high taxes to real fear for everyday life. It is a concern and it is a time that means we need new leadership. Leadership that isn't afraid to look at politics as usual and say we can't have it that way anymore. Leadership that understands that we need not just to manage our government a little bit better, but create a better government to manage. And leadership that understands that the people have got to be part of that process. Common sense needs to be the kind of change and theme that goes throughout our government, the kind of common sense that says you don't spend more than you take in. And as we go forward tonight, you will hear a lot of ideas, a lot of suggestions made as to how to face these issues. They're all going to be important, and they're the only way that you can decide who best can provide the new kind of dynamics that are needed to take New Jersey into the 21st century.
Thank you all. It's time for the first question of this debate. Let's go to the audience and have a question.
I'm Robin Simcoe from Somerset, and I'd like to direct my question to Christine Todd Whitman, and would appreciate the response of the other candidates as well. Under New Jersey's current automobile insurance laws, insurance is still very expensive and very complicated for the consumer. Insurance agents, an important part of the New Jersey small business community, are forced to take all comers and for many service their customers at a loss, and yet we still have a $6 billion deficit in the state-controlled portion of the automobile insurance system. I would appreciate knowing your specific plans, given all these realities, of meaningful auto reform for the state of New Jersey.
Okay, thank you, Robin. Well, as you know, and you have said it very succinctly, New Jersey has some major problems, and just by shifting the initials from JUA to MTF, this administration did not solve any of those problems. There's one premise that we have to understand as we go forward. This is the most densely populated state in the nation. It is a corridor state. We will never have the lowest auto insurance rates in the nation, but we can do better than be number 2. What we need to look at is those policies that are currently being discussed in the legislature that recognize that not everyone owns a car worth $1,000, much less carrying $1,000 worth of insurance on that car. Bare bones policies are important, and it is necessary that we look at those. They probably will involve some form of tort reform, and that has to be part of the process. We cannot deny that. And the other part we have to look at is there are over 300 insurance companies in the state of New Jersey, but only 30 of them write auto insurance policies because it has been so onerous. Until we address that, the consumer is not going to get the choice that the consumer needs in order to drive down the cost of auto insurance.
Mr. Edwards, you want to go next?
The auto insurance crisis in the state of New Jersey has been a crisis for over 20 years. There is a reality to the cost of fixing a car and the costs that go up in that, and a reality to the cost of medical treatment for people who are injured in accidents. As long as New Jersey has one of the largest number of accidents and the largest number of people injured in those accidents, our auto insurance is not going to go down substantially. And it's about time that politicians like Jim Florio start telling the public the truth. We do have a $3 billion debt that would have been paid off this year had Jim Florio not started playing a shell game and trying to move a JUA to an MTF, to pushing costs off to this group or that group, to try to prove that he could reduce auto insurance costs below what they were. The marketplace does need to decide. There needs to be a basic minimum policy. There needs to be tort reform. The question is, which one of us has the skill to deliver on that particular reform, who understands the complexity not only of the industry, but of the state government that should get out of parts of the auto insurance business completely. There never should have been an MTF. The JUA should have gone away and the debt should have been paid. Now you and I are going to have to suffer to pay that $3 billion debt over the next 3 to 10 years, and every other citizen in this state. And it's going to take a skilled hand at the wheel to modify that system and pay that debt off without killing the people of New Jersey.
All right, let's hear from Mr. Wallwork.
Well, Robin, number one, you know, Cary was in chief counsel of the governor when the JUA was formed, so don't tell me he would fix it after he created the problem.
Nobody can do it better.
Well, I would doubt it. I'm a businessman. I've operated in a competition. I know the free market system. That's what we should have. Turn loose the agents, turn loose the insurance companies, let them use their talents, their brain power. When you operate in a competitive system, you're going to stabilize rates. You're going to have the lowest rates possible for automobile insurance. I think you need more variety. You need more choices. As an example, if you want to buy no fault, you buy no fault. If you want to buy the right to sue, you buy the right to sue. In between, the policy could be marketed by the insurance companies for binding arbitration, where you wouldn't sue, but if you had an accident, you could go before two arbiters, as an example, to have your case heard, and whatever they decided, that would be the amount of money that you got. So that would be a third option. You would buy that, and it would cost X number of dollars. The more options, the more choices that people have throughout the state of New Jersey, and that can be marketed by the insurance companies, the better. So I am for a free market system. Turn it loose, let the people make the decisions with a wide variety of options, and let them buy what they want. That's going to stabilize rates and give us the lowest possible rate for insurance.
All right. Thank you all. Are you satisfied with those answers? Then let's move over here. We have another question.
Yes, my name is Albert Intenosha. I'm a practicing dentist in Hillsborough and also Lawrenceville. My question is a three-part question for Cary Edwards, and it's regarding the health care issue. To what extent do you support or oppose the concept of managed care, and do you feel that this state will agree to restrictions on their freedom to choose their own doctors and choose their own hospitals in return for projected savings in health care costs? The second part is, do you support the supermarket union workers strike, which centers around this opposition? And a third part, and I'll repeat it if you need me to.
Yeah, let's hear this third part before I decide whether it's in or out. Go ahead.
In regards to hospitals and the decision by Blue Cross and Blue Shield to limit the use of many hospitals in the state for its policyholders.
All right, well, they are three related questions. Do you think you can answer all three quickly, Cary?
Well, maybe in an hour and a half, Mike. Or maybe a week even, if I had the time. Let me answer it this way, and let me try to focus on what I think your question is. We need health care reform in New Jersey and across the country because health care is too expensive. This is a debate about how much health care costs and what's the most efficient and effective way to deliver it. I want a healthcare system in New Jersey that has choice, that has accessibility to it, that is affordable for the people of New Jersey, and maintains the high level of quality that should be there. That's what I want as governor. We're waiting, we in New Jersey and every other state across this nation, for the president and the administration to make decisions that will frame our position here in New Jersey. And no one can give you a direct answer on any of those because you don't know how they all play off against that federal system. We're going to agree or we're going to disagree. But I will tell you two things, and two things I will do. To drive down real cost, and this will govern every decision I make as governor. To drive down real cost of health insurance, you have to look at the two things that drive that cost. One, people are sicker than they should be. Preventative medicine will deliver better and cheaper health care. Two, our administrative costs for health care run 18 to 20%. Real way to drive down cost is to bring that health care administrative cost down to 5 or 6%. We have the technology and the skill to be able to do that. My decisions as governor will be founded on achieving those goals, but they will always be to maintain choice for people, accessibility, affordability, and quality health care. We have the finest health care in this nation.
All right.
And the last piece, I just want to add one more piece to it, Mike, if I can. New Jersey has always, this state, the people of this state, during my entire adult life, have always provided health care for all of our people. And I will continue that tradition.
Mr. Wallwork, you want to take the question?
Well, yes, Michael. I have to say, so far as health care is concerned, my wife always says she'd rather spend the money in the supermarket than in the doctor's office, and I certainly agree with that. I'm very much concerned about the managed health care program that you mentioned, Doctor. I opposed the DRG when I was in the state Senate, the diagnostic related group. I said it wouldn't work. It didn't. 10 years later, they threw it out. I'm very concerned about the managed health care because we all want the doctor-patient relationship to be maintained. When you have a third-party provider looking over the shoulder of the doctor and say, no, 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 we can't spend for this, you've got to do that, you've got to use this medicine, that's bad medicine because the third-party insurance provider doesn't really know medicine and is interfering with the doctor's judgment. I don't like that. And I certainly support the people that are out on strike saying they don't want managed health care because managed health care is what they had in Eastern Europe and we know it doesn't work. Now I am for individual health IRAs, like your IRA that you have now for your retirement benefit. I think a health IRA program makes sense where people can put money in a health IRA. If you're healthy, you don't have to draw the money out and you can build your account up. On top of it, I would have catastrophic insurance, so if you had a major illness, that would be covered. Blue Cross Blue Shield you mentioned. They should not redline, in my judgment, these hospitals the way they have without a reason. I've seen no reason, so we ought to know, we need to know as consumers what are the charges in the various hospitals so we take care of that. The doctors, in my judgment, should be leaders, not privates and corporals in the rear rank in the healthcare delivery system.
Last point, Senator.
They have to cut the paperwork that is onerous to the doctors, and as I would appoint an insurance commissioner to work with a health commissioner to make sure we cut this health insurance paperwork and strip it away from the doctors and curb the medical malpractice burgeoning costs.
All right, let's hear Mrs. Whitman's answer to the question.
Well, as you know, Doctor, last year the legislature took the first steps to try to improve the healthcare delivery system in the state of New Jersey. And there were very important premises that they acted upon. One, portability of healthcare. That's important. The portability of healthcare insurance so that someone doesn't feel locked into their job because of health insurance and the fear of losing it. The ability for individuals and small businesses to bond together to buy insurance at a lower cost, at a group rate, is an important concept that needs to be there, as well as the ability or to control the insurance company's ability to keep someone from accessing a policy because of pre-existing conditions, limiting that to 6 months. But what's been lacking all the way through has been prevention. For instance, dental care isn't mentioned in any of these, either at the national level or the state level. You don't have that concept built into the discussion on health care delivery, and it simply must be there. We will have some form of managed care at the tertiary level, and that is probably appropriate. Not every community hospital can be able to do open heart surgery. But primary and secondary care must be delivered as close and as directly to the people and the public as possible. That's the way the emphasis has got to be. And as we move forward, there's something that's been missing in all of these. And as I talked to someone from the Department of Health not all that long ago, and I asked them, I said, if cost is a major concern that we have in healthcare delivery and the management of cost as part of the three legs of the stool, accessibility and quality being the other parts, then can you tell me what part of the healthcare delivery system is in fact driving up that cost the fastest? Is it the drug companies and the cost to bring a drug to market? Is it defensive medicine? Is it the regulatory problems that you have? Is it malpractice suits? What point is it? And the response I got back was, we don't know. I can't tell you that because we've never been asked. If we don't outline the scope of the problems, we are never going to get to the right solutions. That's got to be behind everything.
We have another question, but very quickly, Senator Wallwork did address the Blue Cross hospital issue, and the two of you didn't really say whether you're in favor of Blue Cross's new network that red lines, to use Senator Wallwork's word, some hospitals out of the network, or whether you're against that as he
Well,
is.
Michael, I will say that, as you know, Blue Cross and Blue Shield are now no longer the insurers of last resort. And I think we have to wait and see how the 5 mini policies kick in and what is going to happen. They need to make public their reasons for how they determined which hospitals were not going to be participating. And I think there's been a problem in allowing the hospitals to have enough input into that and to truly negotiate with them. And that's not right.
Mr. Edwards, on that Blue Cross hospital question?
The Blue Cross Blue Shield, as was mentioned, is not now the only supplier. That modification and that legislation that took place last year between the governor and the Republican legislature created options for people. There will be an option for managed care, I believe, that small businessmen, large business people, individuals will be able to opt for so that they can choose the policy that they see and fits them best. In doing that, Blue Cross and Blue Shield has put a managed care program together with a group of hospitals. I agree that they have been arbitrary and capricious about that. The interim period, however, our urban hospitals are almost failing and going bankrupt as we go through that transition. We can't allow that to happen. You also mentioned the strike, by the way, and the strike...
Very quickly, please.
He did mention
very quickly.
The strike is typical of the magnitude of the problem. The strike is typical of the magnitude of the problem. That is a strike about health care. Well, it is a lockout and it is a strike about health care.
I say we got a lockout here on the platform.
All right.
Well, Jim, you know...
In 10 seconds, are you for the union or not?
No, what I'm trying to point out is the magnitude. The only point I'm trying to make is the magnitude of the problem that will be repeated over and over as we wrestle with the decision between picking managed care or picking non-managed care.
Managed care.
Very quickly, Senator. We have a lot more ground to cover.
Managed care is a buzzword. It's bad. It's going to lead to a decreased quality of medicine in the state of New Jersey and in our nation. I'm opposed to it.
You made that point. All right. Let's, in the interest of getting more subjects and questions in, let's try to have shorter dialogues on the next question.
That's what happens with no timer.
With no time cards, right? Okay, go ahead, please.
My name is Danielle Catrona, and I'm from Saraville, New Jersey.
A little louder, please.
The closing of New Jersey's military bases and imposed price controls on our pharmaceutical companies by the new administration will cause serious unemployment. As a Republican governor dealing with a hostile administration, what will you do to protect New Jersey from future job loss?
If I can just repeat the question in case you didn't hear. She said that the Clinton administration is trying to close down military bases in New Jersey and is also trying to slap price controls on the pharmaceutical industry in New Jersey. That will cost jobs. And your last point was,
what will you do to prevent future job loss?
Well, as governor, I would be fighting very strongly with the Washington contingent in the Clinton administration, because I believe, as a military person, and I graduated from West Point, so I know about the military, the closing down of McGuire Air Force Base, as an example, I think has a devastating impact on the people that live in the area, and it's bad economically for the state. Now, it may already be closed by the time I'm elected governor, so by the same token, I have a program to turn McGuire Air Force Base into an international cargo center. I think that this is feasible. It would take traffic away from JFK, which is overcrowded. McGuire is also a place that would be much more secure, and it would also be an area where we could have, and there's less pilferage there as compared with JFK as an example, so I think there are a lot of factors. If we had a national emergency, you could make McGuire up and running as a military facility in 6 to 8 hours. So that's important to keep McGuire, and I would have a free trade zone adjacent to McGuire where we could attract business from overseas to this air cargo center, and Siemens in Germany, other places, high-tech, to provide jobs for people. I think that's very important. So I would do that, although in the final analysis, I hope that the base closure committee will say McGuire should stay where it is. It's foolish to change it and send it up to upstate New York. Militarily, it makes no sense in my judgment.
Can I stop you there?
Sure.
All right. Mrs. Whitman, how would you prevent job loss?
In order to prevent future job loss, the governor has got to be the advocate and proponent of business. We have got to make one basic decision, and that is the kind of jobs we want for the citizens of New Jersey are the jobs created by business. That's where our strength lies. And in order to do that, you have to have a proactive governor. I have a plan, economic revival blueprint for jobs and for the state of New Jersey. And that addresses many of the initiatives that I would undertake that would encourage business to stay here. Regulatory reform. We need to go through our regulations to see which are truly protecting public health and safety and which are just making it more difficult to do business in the state of New Jersey. We have to get the state's fiscal house in order so we have a stable tax base so businesses know what they have to deal with. We have to have an advocate within the Office of the Secretary to act as ombudsman for business persons. Say, where are the biggest roadblocks to getting business done here in the state of New Jersey? It shouldn't take 3 to 4 years to get through a permitting process in the state. We have a problem not only attracting jobs, but in keeping the jobs we have right here. And with the specifics that you talk about, we should work on a two-track. We should work with our congressional delegation to try to preserve McGuire Air Force Base, and ensure we don't lose those jobs, but at the same time, we should be working with the business sector, with the people in that community, to say that if that closes, we don't have an economic disaster. It's happened to us before with Picatinny, and it was very successful. We were able to turn that into something, a loss leader, into something that provided revenues for the state.
Let me stop you there, Mrs. Whitman. I think you stopped yourself. I didn't have to stop you. Mr. Edwards.
Christy, the question was, how are we going to prevent future job loss? She gave examples of things that were already going wrong. We're going to prevent future job losses by acting now. Why have you opposed the income tax, research and development tax credit, investment tax credit? Yes, you have. Yes, you have.
No, I haven't.
Research and a small business tax cut for small businesses now. This legislature needs to act today. And right now, next week, I think on their agenda, they've got those bills listed at my request, and you oppose
Cary,
them. We don't have time to wait for a governor to get elected and figure out what they'll do when they get there and what tax they'll move here and what tax they'll move there. We need to tell the voters of this state, we need to tell the people in this audience what we want to do very specifically. And I've said it. It's in my plan for New Jersey's future. In January, I asked the legislature to take the $500 million they're going to cut out of this budget to modify taxes to get this economy going now. We can't afford to wait.
Why don't we let Mrs.
Can I respond?
All right, enough applause.
Cary,
please.
you know
Mrs.
my
Whitman.
economic blueprint has been out for a long time now, very specifically in there. Well, it's a lot more specific than yours because it's a fiscal impact statement with every single proposal there, which you lack. It also calls for an R&D tax credit or differential to get rid of that. And I know that a lot of those initiatives that you talk about were already in legislation before you brought them out, and I'm perfectly willing to say to the legislature when they have taken an initiative, good job, I'm going to support
Get your facts straight.
And my facts are straight.
Get your facts
Quick rebuttal.
Get your facts straight. You've been on three sides of the tax issue. People need their taxes reduced now.
Okay.
You were against it, you were for it, you were against it, you want it as a goal. The people, those people who are unemployed can't wait.
Mr. Edwards, Senator Wallwork gets a turn, and then we're going to the next question. Quickly, Senator Wallwork, please.
I'm confused by this. What Cary's saying is absolutely wrong. As a business person...
Please hold your applause. It's going to eat up a lot of time.
As a business person, I know what business people want. They want the lowest taxes across the board. They don't want targeted tax credits, targeted tax approaches. They want the lowest taxes across the board, a uniform program so that they can plan. And that's what I propose because I want the tax cuts eliminated that Florio put in. I want to cut those taxes, and Senator Scott has that legislation in. Cary keeps referring that I don't have a plan, but I do. Senator Scott's bills will begin to repeal these bills that Florio put in, the high taxes. And R&D tax credits, what Mrs. Whitman has proposed, that's Clintonomics. It's targeted for special interest groups. We want tax cuts across the board for the working men and women and for business.
Okay, all right. Let's move on. We have another question over here.
Hi, my name is Joy Gitterman. I'm from Plainsboro, and this is also a question about unemployment. Recently, I left a very secure position to take on a new job that seemed like a great opportunity at the time, but unfortunately, a few weeks later, I was let go because of cutbacks within the company. And now I find myself one of a very large amount of New Jersey's unemployed, and I want to know, it's for everybody, what you would plan on doing to help New Jersey's unemployed.
Mrs. Whitman, why don't you go first because it's your turn to go first. What would you do to...
Nice, Michael. Thank you.
No, she didn't go first last time. You went first last time.
You went first. Yes, you did.
What would you do to help New Jersey's unemployed?
Again, I refer you back to what is in my economic revival blueprint. There are two things that we have to do. We have got to get the state's fiscal house in order. That means we have to start bringing down the cost, the ever-increasing cost of government. When we do that, that means we have to, I believe very strongly, we have to do a performance audit of every agency in state government. We need to do that. Now we need to set goals. Then we can put government on performance-based budgeting so we can understand how the money is being spent, where it's being spent, why it's being spent. Is it being spent for the kind of programs we want? The other side, though, we have to encourage the private sector, and although Mr. Edwards doesn't seem to believe this, I have called for the R&D tax credit, the elimination of the S-Corp differential, and other initiatives to try to encourage business to be in the state of New Jersey. But the biggest thing and the biggest roadblock to business, and business creates jobs, and that's what we need in this state, is our regulatory scheme that we have now. And until we get at the heart of that, we are never going to solve the problem. And when you recognize that one of the reasons for that is we have a Department of Environmental Protection and Energy that is now over 80% funded by fines, fees, and penalties, you begin to understand why we have the problem. They go to business and they don't say, I'm here to help you get through a process. They go to business and they say, I'm here to get some money out of you.
Okay.
You don't understand. The girl doesn't have a job today. That's not a. This isn't a lecture. This isn't a lecture. Yeah, I'm in a position. At least I've had one in life, you know. This is an immediate problem. That's the point. You're just not getting either the question or the answer or the issue right. This young lady has lost a job and is unemployed. What can we do as governor, and what can this state do, and what should they be doing now? Again, I'll say that's why in that plan for New Jersey's future, there are, and I said it in January, and I've been saying it, I've been lobbying the legislature since then to get it done now, is to give those tax credits, to give this economy a boost, to invest $5 million in tourism, produce $45 million in new taxes, $350 million in new business, 6,580 jobs, if we do it now. You can't afford to wait. There are people out there who are hurting, and hurting badly.
Right. Mr. Edwards, let me stop you there. Let's let Mr. Wallwork in, and then Mrs. Whitman, you'll get a rebuttal.
Look, the first thing we have to do is dump Florio. He's the problem. First thing I'm going to do the day after I'm elected in November, before I'm sworn in, I'm going to appoint a task force of working men and women, qualified people, to go through all the rules and regulations that are stifling business and killing jobs. That's going to put the welcome mat out for business. Governor Florio's had the unwelcome mat out for business, and business has been fleeing the state of New Jersey, and jobs have been destroyed here. I'm the only one that said I'm going to cut the $2.2 billion increase that Florio put in. That's what put us in the tank. I'm going to do that 4% a year. That's important. Fines and fees are very, very important. Someone mentioned earlier about the pharmaceutical companies. Hoffman Roche 4 years ago was paying $28,000 a year for water quality tests in their Belvedere plant. It's now $655,000 a year at one plant. And do we wonder why Hoffman Roche and other areas, other pharmaceutical companies are moving out of the state of New Jersey? We have Merck, Hoffman Roche, Johnson & Johnson, so many fine firms that provided excellent jobs. We have to keep them there. And as governor, I'm going to be working with these executives to make sure we keep those jobs, and you'll get a job in that area because it's a good, well-paying job. So
let me stop you there.
I'm going to go after the fines and fees and strip them out.
All right, Mrs. Whitman, I think you raised your hand when Mr. Edwards said you didn't have a job or had never held one. You want to respond?
Well, you know, I'd ask for an apology for that, Cary, but I think there's an apology that you owe not just me, but every woman, business person, and everyone else. No, wait a minute. Time out. But it's not based on that remark. It's based on what you said last Saturday on WPIX when you said you sat there and you basically resented having to run against a woman. I find that extraordinarily offensive to any thinking person. Well, and that's what you said. Would you like to explain it?
Please, hold the applause. Please.
Let me set the record straight, because number one, Christie was invited to that program, but somehow wasn't able to make it, according to what Marvin Scott said. Number two, I do want you to know, Christie, if you know, that I did say that I welcomed you and any woman in the race.
Didn't say it.
Let's hear Mr.
We do need
respond.
100% participation in government with women, because they have a lot of talent, a lot of brain power. I know. I have a very smart wife and a very smart daughter.
Mr. Edwards, please.
No, Christie, I'm not apologizing to you for anything, because I haven't done anything to you. What you have done, however, in this campaign is probably make some flip-flops on issues and changes than Slick Willie's White House. I mean, come on. You should, if you had been...
Quiet, please.
If you had been at that debate, if you had been at that debate, if you had been at that debate, and if you had been at many, many others, dozens and dozens of others that you were invited to, be candid with the public for this campaign from the very beginning and being able to open yourself up. You asking questions like that to try to divert attention away.
Cary, you are asking people to elect you governor of the state of New Jersey. That's of men and women and everyone.
Straight.
You said, I resent running against a woman.
Get your facts
Would you like me to read the quote? I have the quote right here. I can read the whole thing.
Let's move on to the next.
All right, let's move on, Senator. We'll let the newspapers decide this particular issue tomorrow, and we'll move on. We have another question.
My name is Mary Ann Torrey. I am a CPA, a partner with the firm Mintz & Company, CPAs in Freehold, New Jersey.
Free ad.
Beg your pardon?
Free ad, very good.
Okay. Directing my question to Senator Wallwork, although I would appreciate the comments of both Cary and Christine. In a decade when women are taking on new roles in society, particularly in business and politics, it would only seem right that there should be a more equal representation of both men and women, not only on the local level, but right on up to the Supreme Court. Keeping this in mind, what personal experience could you share with the businesswomen in this audience that may persuade us to vote for you?
Senator?
Well, good question. I think that I am very sensitive to women's issues because, number one, I have a 27-year-old daughter who's a writer. And when you're a freelance writer, that's a tough job. Now, she has a lovely husband, and she writes articles, and she's working now to get another contract for Parade magazine. And I know it's tough when you're young and when you're looking for additional work. My wife and I have always been a good team together, and I think that's the first thing, being a good husband to a good wife and being a good father to a fine daughter. But beyond that, in our company, we've always been a company that's employed men and women equally, and we have a lot of very intelligent women working at Wallwork Brothers, and they add a great deal to our company. And believe me, I recognize not only their abilities and their talents, but the fine competitive spirit that they bring. The other thing that I would say is I'm delighted that we have women in government, because I have to tell you that I've never seen an instance where we've had corruption in government that's been identified with women. We see it in the Florio administration now, a hint, and I don't know what that's going to lead to, but there's no woman involved, and I think that women do bring a lot to government.
Thank you, Senator. Mr. Edwards, why don't you take this question?
I'll be happy to. I was raised in a single-parent household by a career woman, my best friend. We struggled through that world of discrimination, and I mean real discrimination. Not being able to get a credit card, couldn't get a credit card, not being able to buy a house and get a mortgage. That woman went on to be the mayor of Fair Lawn, New Jersey in the early 1980s. I lived that discrimination. And all of my life, I have fought for the right of women and men, competent women and competent men, to serve in the highest capacity they could qualify for. I've been at the forefront of establishing daycare centers and flex time to give women with families the ability to be able to compete in the workplace. I was involved in the appointment of more women judges as counsel to the governor for Tom Kean for 4 years than ever before in the history of Jersey, including the appointment of a woman to the Supreme Court. I have a wife who's a nurse. I have 2 daughters. Their opportunities in life are what I'm worried about, but they must qualify on their competence. One thing my mother always taught me, I always wanted to be treated like a woman and a lady, but I also always wanted to be treated on my merit and my capacity. And that's how I've always treated women and that's how I always will treat them.
Okay. Now let's hear from a woman, Mrs. Whitman.
Oh, Mary Ann, as Harriet Woods, the president of the National Women's Political Caucus, yesterday, nothing beats the real thing. I can only tell you that I have looked to achieving a balance in any position that I've held. I did appoint the first woman as chief executive at the BPU, and over half my division directors were women that I appointed. It's not a question, and I don't think the voters of the state of New Jersey are going to make this decision based on sex. They're too smart for that. They are going to look at the candidates. They are going to see who is offering a fresh way of doing things, who's resorting to the politics as usual, who is answering their questions directly, and who is distorting records. And they're going to make a decision based on who they think is the most competent person to take this state into the 21st century.
And that's why they're going to vote for me.
Thank you all.
Let me just make one quick
Very quickly, Senator.
Quick follow-up, because back when I was in the state Senate, I was the one that brought in funds and state funds for opening up Babyland and other nurseries. So I started that program in the state of New Jersey, and I was very sensitive to the issues because a lot of working women were in need at those times.
Okay.
Still are.
Okay, we have another question over.
It's Mike Work on Hamilton Square in Mercer County. My question is for all three candidates. In this era of rising government costs, what are your views on regionalizing some government services in an attempt to eliminate duplicate bureaucracies? Specifically regionalizing the educational bureaucracy so that we don't waste tax dollars on administration and unnecessary bureaucracy, but rather divert them to the classroom where they're needed. The same, I think, can be said for local and county and state parks departments, police departments, health and welfare departments. All of these services are offered at both the county, state, and local levels. And a follow-up to that, if you could be specific, please, if you're elected, specifically what would you do to achieve a goal of rising government services?
Cary Edwards.
My plan for New Jersey's future, that back to basics in dealing with education very specifically, requires a fund change in the way our education system works, moving it from a state-run system where all 611 districts are exactly the same to an individually designed school system for each community and neighborhood in New Jersey. But in doing that, one of the things we have to do is take the administrative cost off the burden and back of principals and teachers so they can teach real kids, so our kids can get the education so that they can survive. We can regionalize administrative services to take that burden away from the primary mission, which must be local and community-based and focused. The same applies to police services. We don't need policemen doing administrative functions. We need them being cops on the street, protecting and making our streets safe. We have problems with duplication of services as a result of some of the structures of government across the state. Yes, I support regionalization, but not regionalization of services, regionalization of cost to give the mission back. The best services that are ever given are given at the local level. We do police work better in small communities and in small neighborhoods. We do educate better when we educate from the community with the community. We must avoid the danger at all costs of regionalizing and making these mammoth bureaucracies that never deliver a service that the taxpayer pays for.
Can I stop?
So yes, I would regionalize services, administrative services, but not real services that go to people.
Mrs. Whitman.
It would be the biggest mistake for the state to force regionalization of any services, whether it's a school district or a police, whatever. But what the state must do and can do is encourage regionalization by removing the barriers within the school system. I believe in the fact that we need regionalization. We have more school districts than we have municipalities in this state, and they all come with big price tags, as you know. But for the it's going to guarantee that we ruin the good school districts we have and we don't help the bad ones. But what the state can do is remove the barriers that the state has in place, the regulatory barriers to regionalization. The state can provide support services to those school districts or communities that want to regionalize services. They don't need to reinvent the wheel every time. This has been done other places. They need to understand how they can do it, and that's the role the state can play. We have to understand that this is all part of the overall look that has to occur in state government, and that's why I'm someone who supports introducing competition into the public sector and privatization of certain services to allow the public sector, to get out of some of the services that it delivers and allow the private sector to offer those if they can do it at less cost. Those kinds of initiatives are the kinds of initiatives we need to have, because we're talking about not just managing the government we have a little bit better. We're talking about creating a better government to manage.
Senator Wallwork.
Well, Michael, I'm a strong supporter of home rule, and I don't like mandatory regionalization. If people want to regionalize because they've made the decision to regionalize locally, that's fine. That's their judgment. But that's why I support initiative and referendum, because we have to bring people back into the system. So regionalization, if we have some carrots out there to help them make their mind up and decide, that's fine. But home rule, I think what we also have to do, because the heart of your question is how can we hold down the local property tax? We have to strip out the unnecessary mandates. We have talented men and women serving as mayors and council people. These people should be there to make judgments with their constituents as to the best way to handle local problems. Bureaucrats in Trenton can't do that. So I want to make sure when I'm governor that I'm meeting with mayors and council people and I'm hearing from them what their problems are. We're going to solve the problems and then move on, because we have to unhorse the good talents of these local people. Right now the state is stifling that.
Okay, did you get the attitudes of the three on that question?
I really was directing my point to the issue of regionalizing the bureaucracy, not the delivery of the services. We have redundant bureaucracies delivering these services. The question is the bureaucracy necessary?
Well, I think you're basically right in some of the bureaucracy, but I'll give you an example in my area. In Peapack, New Jersey, they were talking and they voted about regionalizing with the local town, next town over, the police department. It was going to save money. The voters in Peapack voted it down. They wanted their own police department. In my town, I want my own police department too, because I know the policeman and I think the person wants that. So I don't think that you can regionalize. We regionalize certain health services, and quite frankly, in our town, we're not getting our money's worth in my judgment. So there are problems. There are problems in this regionalization. I think it's got to be approached on a town-by-town basis. There's no one answer.
I want to move on, but I want to give you each an opportunity, if you want to take one, to quickly clarify.
Very quickly. We moved from 6 or 7% of our education costs, 20% in the mid-'70s until the late '70s, because we started mandating things from Trenton, and we added the burden of additional administrative costs. Two things. You can regionalize administrative services without taking away local control over the services themselves. And two, you have to stop the state government from pounding down administrative requirements on local levels that are just absolute unmitigated nonsense.
Okay.
Regionalization, I believe, is going to come because of fiscal necessity, because the municipalities can't continue to pay the costs that they've had to pay. But that's why it's so important for the state to act as a facilitator toward that, because if the state tries to mandate it, believe me, you're going to have a revolution on your hands in the state of New Jersey.
Okay, let's move on. We have another...
I'm Bob Healy. I live in Hunterton and work in Middlesex, and my question involves education. The job market is becoming increasingly high-tech and requires skills that can only be a quality education. How would you propose improving New Jersey's education system to meet this challenge?
Mrs. Whitman, your turn.
Okay, well, first I would urge you to ask for my blueprint for a better education, because that has everything in it. The basic things we have to do, we have to take folks out of education. It does not belong there, your term for the Commissioner of Education. I believe we need to establish curriculum throughout New Jersey. It doesn't matter, a child goes to school at level 8, and that success of that education is judged on whether or not child and go out and get further learning. I've also called closer working relationships and the union in some of our education process, particularly in the vocational technical, for those students who are not on to higher education, to allow some at that time, and the state that we have now, I believe, to pay quality education for all our students. What we have been lacking are standards and accountability. They must be there, and we must be willing to hold the schools to those.
Senator Wallwork?
Well, as an employer and one who created jobs in the private sector, I know that if I get a person that comes into my office that knows the basics, reading, writing, and arithmetic, they can operate and do a good job, because we'll train them in business. So I'm a bug on making sure that in the early grades, the children have the opportunity to master the basics of reading, writing, and arithmetic by the 3rd grade, because you can't build a house without a firm foundation. You can't do the same in education. Once that child gets success and builds on success as the child goes through elementary, then into high school, I think that's very important with the basics. So I think then as they get to high school, they have to be challenged. Too many kids are turned off because they're not challenged. So we need a merit pay, as an example, for teachers, so we can have best teachers in the classroom teaching these kids and challenging them. We need the parental involvement with these kids to make sure that they're being properly looked at and supervised at home, encouraged in reading, especially in the early grades.
Last point.
Okay, we're going fast here, but the other side of the coin is business people will train people that are well prepared in the basics. I've taken people that are truck drivers or counter people, warehouse people, and trained them so they've gone to inside sales, outside sales, and even branch managers in my business. So give me a person that's well trained in the basics, and I'll make a good, productive person out of that, and the average business person will do that too.
Mr. Edwards.
Bob, I would urge you to please get my plan for New Jersey's future. In it contains a fundamental change in our education system that is failing, has gotten more mediocre and downright a failure in our urban centers, for which we're spending the most per student in the nation, and kids are not getting an education. Education makes up a third of all the dollars that we spend. Please get that plan and please read it. Nothing more dramatically points out, I think, my philosophies in a community-based system than that plan, the fundamental change. It also, nothing more dramatic, the differences between us. Please get Mrs. Whitman's plan. Please read it. Please read about the voucher system she doesn't put in her ads or in her literature that she puts out. That will fundamentally destroy the education system, the public education system of New Jersey. First she was vouchers once, now against vouchers, now she's for vouchers, now she wants a pilot program for vouchers. She just doesn't understand because she's never been involved in the educational system of the state. Her children don't go there, she doesn't vote in school board elections, she doesn't participate, she has not participated in the public education system of this state one bit. And her program reflects it. Her program reflects it. Please, to you and to everyone else, please get those programs and compare them. The life and death and the future of our children depend on it.
Mrs. Whitman? All right, let's hold the applause, please. And Mrs. Whitman, you want to respond?
Absolutely. Cary's right. There is a real difference. My program is very, very complete. And you've got to understand about the public education system in the state of New Jersey, and I do understand it. And I'm willing to say, I wrote an article 2 years ago where I opposed vouchers, which is allowing public monies to follow a child to private or religious-based schools, because I was so concerned about the threat of undermining the public school system. But I've spent the last 3.5 years going around this state talking to and with the people of this state, and I can't in good conscience, and Cary, maybe you can, I cannot look a parent of a child in one of the needy school districts in the eye when they say to me, you give me choice within the public school system, and I support that, and this whole system is failing. You're not giving me any choice at all. I have got to have the ability to do more. And on a pilot project basis only, I have supported the voucher system to be experimented with in the state of New Jersey.
Let Mr. Edwards get a quick rebuttal. You want to jump in? Go ahead.
Let me make a quick point. My daughter went to both the public schools and the private schools and to college here in New Jersey, so I'm rather experienced in that, and I'm proud to say I graduated from Montclair High School. So I went through the public school system that gave me, I think, a pretty good education. I believe that the first thing that, as governor, we have to be talking about are jobs in the private sector, to create jobs. And I think that's why we need a businessman as governor to create the climate for jobs in the private sector. Then I would support, because education is a top priority for me also, vouchers in the public school system. But I think it is fair to go into vouchers in the private and parochial schools. I think that that's too much for the public to digest, and I would say initiative and referendum, if you want to put the voucher into the, let the public make that judgment, because it's going to be a very costly program, and I think we have to debate it and let the public, through initiative and referendum, decide that issue.
All right, let's let Mr. Edwards respond to Mrs. Whitman and then move on. Quickly, please.
Very good. As quick as I can. I'm not very quick at things. I acknowledge that to everyone. My propensity for verbosity doesn't change. Yes, Jim, that's true. When you know a lot, you have a lot to say. I would just ask, the Morris County Daily Record made an endorsement of my candidacy last Sunday. The foundation of that endorsement, or one of the foundations, was our difference on education specifically, the competence of my program and the naivete of Mrs. Whitman's.
Okay. Let's move on. We have a question over here.
Good evening.
Well, I think we have to say, in all fairness, they did not. That's really the answer there. But anyway.
Okay. Go ahead.
Good evening. I'm Sharon Gordon. I'm a very proud past state president of the New Jersey Association.
Cary's program is that's different from Christie. I think Christie's situation is she probably just has to continue just like she did the last one. Don't lose it.
What's going to happen here is Christie will be criticized by Cary Edwards in what the Edwards campaign is calling the Whitman Wiggles, and Christie will continue to run essentially her general election campaign right and foist off the Edwards attacks as best she can.
All right. Well, we'll look forward to it then, and then after the debate, of course, we'll hear from both of you and analyze exactly how the candidates performed. Roger Bodman, Jim McQueenie. Well, let's go now to the Garden State Arts Center in Holmdel. The candidates are ready. Michael Aron is ready. We'll bring you now the last live televised scheduled debate of the three major candidates of the Republican Party, live from Holmdel in the Garden State Arts Center. Michael Aron?
Thank you, Steve Highsmith, and welcome to the third and final live televised debate in the 1993 Republican gubernatorial primary season. I'm Michael Aron. We're in the Robert Minor Reception Center at the Garden State Arts Center in Holmdel. This debate is co-sponsored by the New Jersey Association of Women Business Owners, NJN, the New Jersey.
Gordon, I'm a very proud past state president of the New Jersey Association of Women Business Owners. I am the current president of the International Gaming Vendors Association. I'm from Atlantic County. This should be an easy question. I'd like to pose it to all the candidates this evening, considering your support of business and industry and your support of jobs for New Jersey. Considering the recent study and analysis by the casino gaming industry, New Jersey entertainment industry, of approximately $158 million in revenue to be realized by a question we'd like to place on the ballot before the New Jersey voters to protect over 43,000 jobs in this state, monies that will go to the Casino Revenue Fund, monies that have been going to seniors for projects built all over the state, the outgrowth of business of over 4,800 businesses in the state of New Jersey, county by county, who receive over $1.9 billion a year in gross receipts from the sale of goods and services to this industry. Don't you think that the New Jersey voters have a right to go to the polls and vote on this issue? And if you do, are you willing to contact our state legislators to urge them to do the right thing and let New Jersey voters vote?
I'm sorry, you didn't tell us what issue it is.
Well, yeah,
it's sports betting.
Sports betting. All right. It's Mr. Edwards' turn to go first. You're going to go first next. It's Mr. Edwards' turn to go first.
Let me tell you unequivocally that I do support and have supported very consistently putting that issue on the ballot for all of the reasons you just said. So this is a clear issue that the public can decide. And it's also consistent with a position if you support initiative and referendum. However, Mrs. Whitman has flip-flopped on this issue too. The Atlantic City Press headlines, not me.
Please.
Mrs. Whitman supported going on the ballot in January. This is the Atlantic City Press speaking, not me. She wrote a letter to the legislators last Thursday when it was that issue to put it on the ballot was before the New Jersey legislature. It does go on the ballot by the end of this year. It can't because of the federal statutes that are in place, and she wrote them urging them not to vote for that particular bill. A complete reversal of her position and grossly inconsistent with her position on initiative and referendum. Put it on the ballot.
Okay, let's hear Mrs. Whitman. When he attacks her, I have to go to her. I'm sorry. Let's get a response.
Thank you, Michael.
And then we'll get to you.
You should know I did not write them urging them not to support that bill. What I said very clearly was I did not support the initiative if it were to go on the ballot, and it's a perfect example of something that could get to the ballot through initiative and referendum, and that's one of the reasons why I support initiative and referendum. The idea for initiatives is to respond to a public demand. This is not I know you may disagree with this. I'm just giving you the answer that you asked for because I want to be very clear about this. It is a perfect thing to have come through the initiative process, which is something that is supposed to respond to what the public wants, not just the special interest. If it were to have gone on the ballot, what I said very clearly, if it were to have gone on the ballot, I would have campaigned against it because I don't believe in sports betting. The $2 million, $6 million go to the casino industry, $2 million to the state of New Jersey. I don't think it's enough to suddenly change our whole focus on sports from winning and losing to the point spread.
All right, let's hear from Senator Wallwork, please.
Well, I think we ought to, I think we have to frame the question, because if the question does not go on the ballot this year, it's my understanding that we won't be able to put it on the ballot, period. I am for, as I mentioned, initiative and referendum. I think the voters are smart enough in the state of New Jersey to make the determination. So I have already stated publicly that the Senate and the Assembly should pass that resolution, put it on the ballot, and let the voters decide. This is only gambling with professional sports. I wouldn't support it for collegiate sports, but this is professional sports. And if we don't have the question resolved this year, New Jersey will not have it. Other states could very well have it. We would become non-competitive. We have casino gambling in Atlantic City. We have to make sure that we match competition. And as governor, that's one of the things that I want to make sure is the Atlantic City and the greater Atlantic County area will flourish. So I think it should go on the ballot. Let the voters decide up and down, and I'll, as governor, abide by their decision.
I'm sorry, the second part of your question was what? What was the second part of your question?
I wanted to know if the candidates were prepared to contact our state legislators.
I already have. I issued a public statement saying that it should go on the ballot.
Okay.
Unfortunately, the press doesn't print everything we say all the time.
Mr. Edwards, you wanted another word on
that? Contact them and to keep it off the ballot. She talks about walking around and talking to the people in New Jersey, wanting to listen to them. Why doesn't she have enough faith on their ability to vote on this issue? This is about people making a decision. They're capable of making this decision. I have urged the legislature to do it. I will continue to up until the deadline that takes place. And I would request that if Mrs. Whitman still supports initiative and referendum and still preaches, believes what she's preaching about people involvement, she will write the legislature and urge them to put it on the ballot. If she wants to fight it later, she can.
All right. Time for another question.
It's not worth it. Michael, I'll be here all night correcting all the inaccuracies he puts out about my record, so it's not worth it.
Not me. The Atlantic City Press wrote that story, not me.
All right, let's move on. Next question, please.
Hello, my name is Jim. My name is Jim Zarnowski from Ocean Grove, and I ask my question as a lifelong resident of New Jersey, totally educated in New Jersey, and as an attorney, a realtor, a business owner, a landlord, and a beach boy. What is the one most important thing that each of you, that as governor, will do for New Jersey that merits people voting only for you?
Senator Wallwork, one thing.
Let me say I was a beach boy too, and I was everything that you mentioned except I'm not an attorney.
One thing.
And I grew up in Ocean Grove as a kid. The one thing that I am going to dedicate myself for is creating jobs in the private sector. Because if you don't have a good, decent job, you can't provide for your family, then you have nothing. People have to have a decent job. We have a 9.1% unemployment rate in the state of New Jersey, thanks to Governor Florio and his policies of high taxes, unnecessary rules and regulations. I'm going to strip those out. I'm going to kill those taxes. I'm the only candidate that said he's going to do that. We're going to do that, and we're going to put the welcome mat out for business. We're going to create jobs for the working men and women of the state of New Jersey, give them hope, give them opportunity, open up their entrepreneurial skills, and let me tell you something, Jim. Once we do that, the citizens of the state of New Jersey will respond in spades, and we'll have a thriving economy, and we'll have a great state once again.
All right. Mrs. Whitman, the one thing you want to accomplish as governor.
Clearly, the most important thing that the next governor of the state of New Jersey has to do is to get this state being considered business friendly. We have to be able to create the kind of jobs that will give our citizens the security that they need to know that they have a future in this state. They can meet their mortgage payments. They can pay their bills. This is the kind of thing that's changed that tenor that I mentioned earlier of the discussion to real fear. And we have got to change something that we just saw 2 weeks ago, a poll that said that better than 50% of the people in this state would move out if they could. That's inexcusable.
Cary Edwards, one thing.
The one thing that I think we all want is to create jobs. Well, we want to create jobs for New Jersey. so that people can survive and have a better quality of life, so that they can enjoy the fruits of what New Jersey has always given them. We all have that as a dream. The question is, who has the plan, the capacity to make the plan, the public policy of this state, and implement that plan and actually create the jobs? I have that experience. I have the vision and the idea, but I've proven that we have the ability to create jobs. I participated intimately with the Kane administration as counsel to the governor and created 600,000 jobs during that era in the state of New Jersey. I know how to fix this state that's so badly broken. You can get that out of my plan for New Jersey's future.
Thank you all. Let's go to the next question, please. Please, let's go to the next question.
Good evening. My name is Shelley Sisemski. I'm a business owner in Somerset, New Jersey. I'd like to address my question primarily to Christine Todd Whitman, but the gentlemen can comment afterwards if they like. Industrial and automobile pollution has caused the incidence of lung disease, asthma, and allergies among the population in New Jersey to dramatically increase over the last 5 to 6 years. Death rates from asthma have risen steadily, and blame has been placed on this ever-increasing pollution. What, if any, specific plan do you have to clean up industrial pollution, promote clean air, and make our state the shining example of environmental responsibility?
Well, as you know, we have some of the strongest in air pollution control legislation on the books and standards on the books. The thing that we have to do, and this is one of the fundamental underlying principles that I believe of government, government has got to set the standards that protects the public, the greatest number of the public. They have to set the emission standards for SOx and NOx from a smokestack. But what government does not need to do and should not do is then come into the business and tell them how to achieve those standards. If a business can put a different kind of electrostatic precipitator or a different sort of scrubber on their stack and remain competitive within their business framework, they ought to be able to do that. Government's responsibility is to constantly check those emissions to ensure that they meet the standards. We have a lot of different plans, obviously, working forward now. Commutation is one of them, in trying to encourage businesses to use carpooling and van pooling, flex time. All those things go to meeting our energy standards and needs and the clean air standards and needs. But the one thing we always should keep in mind is where we're located geographically. We are on the East Coast. We have got to work very actively for national standards because it matters a great deal to us what happens in Ohio and Pennsylvania because the trade winds blow from west to east. And for all the good that we can do in this state on our own, we can't because we are the recipient of so much pollution from the rest of the nation. We've got to work actively for national standards that protect us as well as everyone else.
Senator Wallwork.
Well, Shelley, when I was in the state Senate, I served 4 years as chairman of the Senate Environment Committee. So I'm very much concerned, and I know about air and water pollution because those are two big problems. We have to maximize our resources here in the state of New Jersey. We have to go back into our urban centers where the people live, and we have to clean up these urban centers so the little kids that are living here don't have the air pollution and the lungs. I was talking when I was in Babyland just last week to the pediatrician. That's one of the big problems they have is the air pollution in the cities and how it affects the lungs and the health of the youngsters there. So it is a problem. I don't favor, however, these mandatory programs of carpooling. I think that that's restrictive, it's bureaucrat at its worst, and it's going to create bigger problems than what they solve. I'm for having a program here of having big corporations have a voluntary program. But let me make the last point. The last point is I want to revisit the Garden State Parkway problem as an example. As I travel up and down the parkway at rush hour, people standing in line, fumes coming off, this is a big problem. I have the germ of an idea of how we could have some toll booths off the right that people would pay, but the balance of the people would pay a yearly fee and be able to go right through without a toll booth. I think we could do that. I'm looking at the technology of how that's done, and that's going to relieve a lot of air pollution in the state of New Jersey. So I'm going to revisit the problems on Garden State Parkway.
Mr. Edwards.
No group of citizens and the 7.5 million people in New Jersey have put more pressure on any government to clean up the environment more than the people of New Jersey have. And no state has been a success in cleaning up our air quality and removing emissions from stacks. New Jersey has over the last 20 years. What I don't think Mrs. Whitman got was there is a national standard. It's called the Clean Air Act, and it's already been passed. And we are already dealing with having to comply with that particular act, which does help force other states around us to have to comply, and so that we are not the subject of emissions coming from other states and other regions who have not been as diligent and as successful as New Jersey has. But we've made a mistake along the way. How we implement those regulations has probably hurt us more in many ways, and a lot of people more than anybody worrying about the environment has really understands, and that is their ability to have a job and survive. The bureaucracy we put together has strangled people physically and completely, so they can't have a house and they can't survive in this state. Somehow we've got to come to grips with our regulatory environment and the air we breathe, the water we drink, and the land we grow our food.
I have to stop you there. We have time for one more question, unless you need a very quick 10 seconds, please.
Cary, as one of my non-jobs as president of the Board of Public Utilities, I was involved in bringing together the air quality people and the regulatory people from the four-state area from which we draw our energy pool to work on the clean air standards and what that was going to mean in emissions trade-offs and that kind of approach to solving the clean air. We still have. You have the California car. Yes. There are a lot of other areas where we need national standards that we don't have yet.
Got to stop you there. We have time for one more question, and we have 30-second response times built into it. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. My name is Mike Maroney. I'm from North Brunswick, New Jersey. Would you support, it's for all the candidates, would you support or oppose a statewide program to clean our public parks, beaches, highways, and city streets by using supervised teams of nonviolent criminals to help beautify our state?
Cary, or Senator Wallwork?
I certainly would. I think that's a very good, they already have certain people over the highways. I've seen them in their yellow suits and orange suits. Yes, I think that that's a very good way. You could have it with teenagers and you could have it with other people. I certainly support that. That's the workfare type of program. And let me just parenthetically say that I've spoken to school teachers in the city of Newark where they haven't had their classrooms painted in 13 years. And we have workfare people in the city of Newark. If I'm governor, I'm going to have them painting the classrooms in the city, not only helping to clean up the highways and the
Cary Edwards.
Not only do I support it, but I was part of the group that helped put the original programs together, including the SLAP program in Morris County for county offenders. Rather than spending a lot of money to incarcerate them, we do have them out doing exactly that, out of our state system and out of our local system. I'm really proud of that program. It does work, and we need to continue to improve it. The SLAP program now, that originated in Morris County that we helped put together, is now being spread out across the state with the support of the courts and the existing administration. I think we are doing that, and we should continue and make it better as we go along and use more people.
Christy Whitman.
Mike, absolutely, I support it. As a freeholder in Somerset County, we made a great deal of use of the inmates in the county jail. They not only ran a farm, but they went out and they helped clean up. And it's something that serves a number of different purposes, not the least of which is to get them outside for some portion of the day where they're contributing back to the community. They're also using up some of their energy so they don't take it out of the guards at night.
Michael, let me make one quick point.
10 seconds.
When I was in the state Senate, I sponsored the law to allow the judges to give alternate service to people and keep them out of jail, but give them alternate service. And that was when I was in the state Senate.
Okay, thank you all. We're out of time for questions. Thank you for your questions. It's now time for closing statements, and by a drawing of lots, the first 60-second closing statement goes to Cary Edwards.
Michael, thank you very much, and thank the New Jersey Association of Women Business Owners for having us here, and thank the viewers who have been watching us in the audience. I'm here this evening to ask for your vote, to ask for your help and support on this election on June 8th. But this election really isn't about me, it's about you. It's about the quality of your life. It's about who has the capacity and ability to improve the streets that you walk on and make them safe, to educate your children, to help you provide a job and give you the ability to survive in this world, to return pride to the state. When a governor is sitting alone in his office or her office and has to make a judgment, they need the ideas, the vision, and the experience to make those decisions because they mean life and death to people, real people, people like you and people like me. I have those ideas, I have that vision, I have that experience. On June 8th, I want your vote. I want you to help me win this election and win it again on November 2nd to create a new New Jersey for you, for me, for your children, and for your grandchildren. Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Please. Mrs. Whitman.
I too want to thank the sponsors because this has been a wonderful opportunity for you to get the object of seeing us and the real differences there are amongst us. New Jersey isn't broken. What New Jersey has been lacking over the last 3.5 years is the kind of leadership that goes beyond just experience. Jim Florio had 22 years in government service before he became our governor, and Lord knows that didn't help him make this a better state. In fact, he's made it a worse state. What we're talking about is leadership that has the courage to challenge the politics as usual. We have to understand this is a great state. This is a wonderful state. It has everything it needs to be number one in this nation. Not number one in taxes, not number one in unemployment, not number one in regulation, but number one in ideas, in innovation, and growth. The only thing it has been lacking is that leadership. And that's why I'm looking for your support on June 8th and again on November the 2nd, because together we can make this state the great state that it truly is by bringing all the people in and understanding that we're talking about a new, creative government that is going to catapult New Jersey into the 21st century.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Final closing statement, Senator Jim Wallwork.
Thank you, Michael. I want to thank the New Jersey Association of Women Business Owners. This has been a great open debate, New Jersey News, and Michael Aron also. As I listened to the debate this evening, it seemed to be a Cary-Christie back and forth confrontation. So, Christie, I think that you and I ought to go one-on-one in a new setting. You're liberal, I'm conservative. You voted for higher taxes and raised the budget 90% when you were a freeholder. You voted four times to raise your salary in 5 years. I never voted to raise my salary once. When I was in the legislature for 16 years, in fact, I voted. I turned 10% of my salary back twice. I'm for repealing the $2.2 billion Florio tax package. You're not so sure about that. I think you and I ought to sponsor a debate between the two of us. If you're willing, I'll pay half, you pay half. We'll meet and we'll decide who should be the next governor, Republican nomination.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. We're out of time. Thank you to the three candidates. Thank you to our audience for your interesting questions. Thanks to the New Jersey Association of Women Business Owners and the JOBO. And thanks to my colleagues at NJN who make this all happen. I'm Michael Aron. Let's go back to our Trenton studio now and Steve Highsmith. Steve?